I met this boy on Tinder. What's new? But I didn't want to be like one of those girls that was like, oh my god, what DJ do you manage? I'm like, oh, swoon, a musician. I'm not a groupie. Like, are you the kind of guy who just picks up girls by talking about your artist? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Fella Friday video. So Fella Friday, for those of you who don't know, is the series on my channel where I talk about a different kind of fella or boy each Friday that I've encountered in my dating life. So let's jump right in. Today's boy or fella is the DJ's manager. So this is a pretty funny story, I guess. I don't know, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if this is a guy everyone will encounter in their dating life, but I encountered this boy, so I thought I would talk about it. I actually have a vlog about me going on this date. It's from like September or October, I think, and it's titled like going on a date vlog. So that was with this boy. So if you want to see how I was feeling at the moment, you can check out that vlog. But let me jump into this story. So this was in September of last year, so September 2019, and I met this boy on Tinder. What's new? And he definitely wasn't my usual type. Like, I could tell he was very like artistic and very like creative, and I'm usually more of like into preppy guys and like businessy guys, so it was definitely different for me. But he seemed really cool and like he had just like a good vibe to him. I don't know, sometimes you can tell by pictures like that someone just kind of has a cool vibe, and in his bio it said he was British but living in Amsterdam, so I thought like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, I'll swipe on him, swipe right on him. So he swiped right on me as well. We matched and we started talking, and right away he was being like pretty vague about what he does. I was like, oh yeah, so what do you do? He's like, yeah, I work in music. So I was like, oh, like what do you mean? Like, are you like a singer? Are you like a musician? He's like, no, I'm like an assistant artist manager. And I was like, oh really, like what type of artists do you manage? And he was like, yeah, like a pretty famous Dutch DJ. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, you know, like, but I didn't want to be like one of those girls that was like, oh my god, what DJ do you manage? So I kind of just left it at that. I was like, you know what, like if we go on a date, we'll talk about it. So he asked me to grab drinks one night, and we decided to meet up at this cafe in Amsterdam. It was super cool, super cute little cafe by Rembrandtplein. So we met up, and right away I was kind of like, oh, I don't really know if like physically he's my type, but he is like, he does seem really cool. And like I said, he definitely had like a creative vibe. I remember I was wearing like a dress and like boots, but I tried to like make it a little bit cooler with like a leather jacket. And I'm really happy I did, because he was wearing like this flannel and this band tee and like Vans, and like usually the guys I go on dates with are wearing like polos and button downs. So it was like definitely a totally different vibe for me. But we got some beers, and the conversation was pretty good, and he kept like talking to me about his work and how long he'd been in Amsterdam. And at a certain point I'm like, okay, can I just ask you like who's the DJ? So he tells me the DJ's name. I'm not gonna say it here for privacy for this boy, but it's a pretty famous DJ. And he was like, yeah, I've been working with him for like 3 years. I'm like one of the assistant managers, so I travel with him a lot. And like he was telling me going to Ibiza because he plays there a lot, or like going to the States, like he travels with the DJ a lot as well. So that was super cool. And he really had a lot to say about like the music industry, which obviously I've never encountered before. So I was like, oh my god, this is so cool, you know, and like really telling me a lot of stuff about that and about his experience as being like an expat in the Netherlands. So I was like, okay, you know, we were definitely like had like a good vibe, and like the more of a conversation kept flowing, the more I was like, oh, okay, it might not have been my type on paper, but I actually kind of really dig this guy. Like he's a cool guy. But he was like definitely really talking about the music industry, and at a certain point I was kind of like it just kept seeming like he like wanted to ask that I asked him more questions. So he was like, yeah, no, I worked with a pretty like big artist like at a festival this summer. She, you know, it's really like popping off. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. Like, I'm glad you had a good experience. And I could tell he like wanted me to ask. So of course I'm like, oh, so like who was he? He's like, yeah, I worked with Billie Eilish. I was like, okay, I was pretty impressed. I was like, okay, that's pretty freaking cool. Because he does some consulting like sometimes as well. So yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm starting to like this guy. So I think we had a couple beers at the cafe, and then he told me that because he was an assistant manager, The company had provided him with an apartment that like I guess the head manager wasn't using or something. And he was like, yeah, it's really nice, like if you want to see it, it was like really close by. I was like, yeah, you know, that's cool. I didn't really expect too much. I was like, oh, you know, it's probably just like a pretty chill apartment. But this apartment was so beautiful. It was on Rembrandtsplein, which is like in the center of Amsterdam. It had like different floors. It was really, really nice. So we went back to his place and like had more drinks. We ended up playing drinking games, which was actually really funny. Like 2 people playing a drinking game doesn't really work, but we had fun. Definitely really hungover the next day, and you know, he definitely had moves. So I guess maybe this is just for like any musician or anybody in the music industry. He like out of his top floor he had a piano, so he like takes me up there and he's like, yeah, like let me play something for you. So he's like playing all these songs like super beautifully. So of course as a girl I'm like, oh, swoon, a musician. So yeah, I was like, okay, like I'm really starting to dig this guy. And like I said before, he worked with Billie Eilish once, and he had like a set list signed by her from like a concert she did, and he was like showing me, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is your move to get the ladies, you know, showing stuff like this and like playing piano. But like I said, we had a really good time, and we did drink a lot. And he asked me to stay the night, and I didn't want to do that on the first date, so I went home I think around like 3 or 4 a.m. so it was like a really long date. But it was super fun, and even like on the date he said like, oh, I really want to see you again. Like in the vlog I even tell this, he's like, yeah, that like he told me that night that he really wanted to see me again. So I was like, okay, you know, I felt good about it, and it was definitely a different type of guy, but you know, it was like pretty cool. And I think it was in like, yeah, September or October, and that's always when Amsterdam Dance Event is, which is like this big crazy week in Amsterdam where there's a bunch of parties and DJs playing. And so the artist that he manages was also playing a couple nights, and he was even like, yeah, because I was going to one event with friends, and he was like, oh, well, afterwards maybe you can hit up like where my DJ's playing, and like I can get you backstage and stuff like that. So he was definitely using his like power, I guess, to attract girls. And that was the only thing that I didn't really like. Like when he said stuff like that, I was like, I'm not a groupie. Like, are you the kind of guy who just picks up girls by talking about your artist? Because like I said, like he was cute, but he wasn't necessarily like my physical type. So I don't know, it just kind of felt like weird. I was like, is this like your trick? But I wanted to give this guy a chance, and we did have a really good night. So he told me like, yeah, I want to hang out again, but I'm headed to Japan for like a week, so I can't right now, but let's like stay in contact when I get back. So I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. So I am like, you know, the next day we texted a little bit, and I was like, I don't want to be like too forward or pushy, but I think like halfway through the next week I texted him. I was like, hey, like hope you're having fun in Japan, like how are things over there? And he was super polite, and we talked a little bit but not like a lot. And then when he got back, I texted him again because he like told me when he got back. I was like, hey, like how are you back? Like, do you want to grab a drink? And he's like, yeah, no, I really want to, but I'm sick and like I'm busy because I have to be at like these concerts and this and this. And I was like, because that was like around the time that Amsterdam Dance Event was, and I was like, oh, okay. And he was still kind of like, oh, are you gonna go? I was like, no, I'm going to a different DJ, like, sorry. And I guess we just kind of lost touch after that. Like, I feel like on the first night there was like a spark, but I guess afterwards, I don't know, he was super busy. And when I was telling friends this, they were also like, yeah, but if you get into like that world of dating someone who's like a musician or working for a musician, like his life is crazy. Like he's on planes all the time, he's like working all the time. Like I don't know if that's necessarily someone that you want to be dating at like this phase of your life. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right, like this isn't necessarily what I'm looking for. And I think he liked like the groupie lifestyle a little bit too much. Like he was definitely super sweet and sincere, but I could tell he kind of used like some of his musician tricks to like get girls. So he probably enjoyed the single life. So yeah, we never went on a second date. It was one fun night. We kissed, nothing more than that. But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a cool experience though, because now like whenever this DJ gets brought up, I'm like, ah, do you know I went on a date with his assistant manager? So I guess that's pretty funny. Yeah, that was my story. Kind of a random one this week. I went on a really interesting date 2 days ago. So that story is probably coming soon as well, but I also like going back and just telling you guys some fun stories. So I guess my advice for this is like, just know if a guy's being a little bit phony with you or trying to like get you, and it doesn't even have to be a musician, like it could be anything. A guy could be like, oh, do you know what I do? Like just trying to impress you in a certain way. And yeah, no real advice for the musician, I guess. It didn't work for me, but hopefully it works for you if you meet a music guy or a guy in like the artist industry. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Subscribe, leave a like, comment, and I will see you guys again next week with a new video. Bye!